God has many attributes, but one attribute stands out and is repeated over and over again in the scriptures, and that is the merciful nature of God. In this series on mercy, I will share with you my reflections on God's loving mercy from the perspective of the Jewish culture to the impact of the Babylonian exile on Israel, down to the Gospel of St. Luke, the evangelist to the Gentiles. Welcome to the podcast series on God's mercy. The Selikrot is the Jewish collection of poetries and prayers invoking the kind mercy of the Lord. A major pillar in the Selikrot is the so-called 13 attributes of mercy, which is based on Exodus 34, verse 6 to 7, wherein Moses received instructions from God on how to present his name to the Israelites. We will divide these attributes into three parts throughout the first three episodes of this series. And the first part of it goes like this: the Lord, God compassionate and gracious. Ancient Semitic cultures are generally polytheistic, and Semitic tribes usually worship several different Baals or lords. But in the scriptures, when referring to the one living God, Yahweh, they refer to him as the Lord. In Exodus 34 verse 6, the Lord, or Adonai, is declared twice. And according to the Talmud, the sacred normative ancient commentaries on the Jewish scriptures, in imploring God's mercy, one begins by acknowledging that 1. The Lord is merciful before a person sins, and that 2. The Lord is merciful even after that person has gone astray. This lays the foundation for us listeners, that God's mercy is constant and is unchanging, encompassing the past and future actions of a person. It reminds me of the words of Saint Teresa of Avila that everything passes. God is unchanging. The image of the father in the parable of the prodigal son also comes to mind. This father who remained loving toward his younger son before and even after the latter's betrayal. Frequently, it is us who are inconstant in our faithfulness. God remains faithful. God is love, before, now, and forever. Furthermore, in verse 6, it is said, God, compassionate and gracious. The name El, or God, in Jewish culture, denotes power and dominion over the creation, indicating that his mercy transcends human logic and nature. Going back to the father of the prodigal son, we see this unconditional love that expresses itself in an extraordinary way, which we might even consider as amazing and prodigious. The word rahum, or compassionate, in the Bible shows us that God acknowledges human weakness and therefore does not test them beyond what they can endure. St. Paul, in his first letter to the Corinthians, affirms this when he said, God is faithful. He will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. God's compassion also gives us the time we need to turn away from evil and go back to Him. Lastly, the word Behanun, or gracious, in the Bible tells us that God remains kind even to those who are unkind and undeserving. That He also has a soft spot for those who are mistreated and unloved. He goes out to them, consoles them, and picks them up from their misery. In Mark chapter 5 verse 45, Jesus affirms this by saying, "For He, God, causes the sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous." Furthermore, in Luke chapter 1 verse 52 to 53, we hear the beautiful praise of Mary saying, "God has exalted those who were humble. He has filled the hungry with good things." What a loving and generous God we have. Hearing all these, I can say we're off to a good start. But there are still more we can say about the mercy of God. But for now, let us contemplate on how mercy is in the very core of God's identity. Mercy is who He is. Thank you for listening. This podcast is a personal initiative of mine in my desire to bring God wherever His people are. I believe that the more we talk about God, the more we bring Him into our consciousness, the more we are reminded that He is real and He is ever close to each one of us. My prayer is that you discover Him personally, by yourself, and see that what He wants is nothing but happiness for you. God bless us all.